Facebook, family, and friends. You know what time it is. Saturday morning. Me and Sammy, we're here with you. Ooh, what's going on over here? Get this going. Dang. So you know what we do. This is every Saturday morning. Formers Anonymous. We come to you live, discussing issues related to recovery and life, how we live our lives. It's important that we struggle together as a set, as a whole, and so individually. Make sure that we're here to make sure we are here to support all of us. So let me get Sammy in here. Last week we were talking about relationships and how they're important to us. This week we're going to move forward, but we got some announcements to make in a moment. What's up, Sammy? Good morning.
What up, brother? I feel like I'm looking kind of dark this morning.
Man, I was up pretty late last night doing some work. Stomach ain't feeling the best right now, but
did you make any money?
No.
So you're just out there foot patrolling and nobody picked you up?
Yeah, mail stripping quarters. Got hit in the head a couple of times with dimes and nickels. You know the deal. So this morning I'd like to start off, bro.
Penny rolls.
I'd like to say to my niece, Lorena, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Man, I've been watching you grow for a decade now. You've become a beautiful young lady. You're out in Miami. Tony, motherfucking baloney. I love you, bro. Happy birthday. I believe you're 72 this year. I know you're growing, but last but not least,
what's up, Tony? Happy birthday, brother!
On this date, many years ago, but not too many, my daughter, Sissy, Alyssa, was born. I remember most of it.
Wow.
Hey, listen, I was young. Drugs and alcohol might have been involved, knowing that my child was on the way. My baby was born this morning. Happy birthday. I love you.
Happy birthday.
I am so happy that I lived through you because, girl, you weren't nothing nice. I don't know how many times your mother and I didn't know whether either of us were going to make it. But happy birthday, baby. I love you. So, Sammy, we were on step 4. In fact, we did 2.5 shows on 4. We moved over into relationships, what made good relationships, how we could make them strengthen, and we connected that to step 4. What do you want to do this week?
This week, we're going to do, for the very first time, we're going to touch on step 5.
Man.
And that basically is where we're... What's up, Amy? Good morning.
Morning, Amy.
Thank you for putting my name first again. I appreciate this so much. She
only does that to appease you, to make you happy. She loves me more, damn it.
I think what we know about Amy is she never does it to make anyone happy. But
she does not.
She'll do it to destroy you.
She does.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you so much. She wants to destroy you, Monta. She wants to just take you and just shrivel you up.
I don't think so. I know she loves me.
I mean, she does that to people she loves. That's Amy.
She knows it's important to you. She also knows I like the abuse, so bam.
Probably has a lot to do with it.
Hats off to you.
Dude, listen, I can't go into a lot of details just because, I'm not one to do that. I don't know, it's weird. I'm an open book, but I feel like Yes, that's true, Amy. And but listen. I was trying to call you yesterday, but you were on the phone with someone and you hung up on me.
Me?
Yeah, you. Um, Yesterday.
Morning, Sandra.
Well, let's back up for a second. You guys know that last year around October. Well, we started. Amy was there. We helped sell the house. She helped us sell our house. I think we were doing that in August.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to move into one of Amy's apartments because the house we were trying to buy in Arkansas fell through at the last minute. We were supposed to buy and sell on the same day and move in on the same move out, move in on the same day. And your company helped us move out. And we put a lot of our stuff in storage, and so now we got to scramble to move into this apartment. And at the same time, things happened where I needed to take a break from my company. I was just burned out, man. I was just tired, and I needed to move on. And so I take this leap of faith and I move on, and we find this other home while we're in the apartment. We're really scrambling to try to get this place that I moved into now. And dude, it was so up and down. And the company we worked with was so shitty. Like they were just it was Chase Bank, just to be transparent. Like, yeah, it was a wreck, Amy. We had to, you helped us with this too much that we had to put the flooring in, get the carpet out, like get the carpet in. I bought a stove that blew up in Julie's face. Like it was a mess.
I painted the entirety of the house in one day.
No, you painted everything in the house. Like
I said the entirety.
Yes, all the contents too. It's like, what the hell? And what does Amy say? What is that? And you didn't have me as a realtor down there? Where? I'm lost.
In Missouri.
In Missouri. No. I didn't think you could do it down here. But anyway, we did all this stuff on, like, we just said, it'll work out. But it wasn't like blind faith, right? It was like we had done everything we could, but everything wasn't guaranteed. Nothing was guaranteed, including getting the house. And because Chase was doing so bad, it started to look dimmer and dimmer. So, for example, they wanted a roof inspector who was licensed, first of all, to give a report on the condition of the roof. There is no such thing. But because they requested that, it started to delay the process even further, right? Every little thing they asked for is another week or two, to figure it out. And so before we realized there is no such thing as a licensed roof inspector. It's an inspector. We had an inspector. He gave his report. They read the report and said, no, we actually need a licensed roof inspector. And so we're all like trying to look for a licensed roof inspector, like you need blinking fluid when you go into the car.
Right.
It doesn't.
Good morning, Iris.
Good morning. It doesn't exist, right?
Right.
So then we have to teach the bank with the inspector and with the Missouri realtor that there is no such thing. And we're going back. We're wasting time. And right, it's a licensed roofer, but not a licensed roof inspector, right? They weren't looking for a licensed roofer. They wanted somebody who was licensed to inspect roofs, like the inspector wasn't.
Right.
So anyway, it was little shit like that. And then one day, Julie escalated a complaint, because of stuff like this. It was just causing delay and every week was just pushing us closer to the risk that the homeowner would pull out because they're being ridiculous, right? Then one day, Julie is talking to the
morning, Barb. Love you.
To like a VP person, right? And the lady starts laughing like sarcastically at Julie's complaints while we're on the phone. because she thinks we're being unreasonable. We're like, actually, you guys don't know what you're doing. That's when she started laughing, when Julie said, you guys actually don't look like you know what you're doing. And then what that lady didn't realize is that phone call was being recorded. And so we escalated it up to like literally like the president of Chase. He listened to the recording. He said, from now on, you know, you won't be dealing with her. I'll assign someone new to the case. And then like within a week and a half, everything went through. Big relief. Big relief. And then we drove here 7 hours with no sleep and 36 hours to get here. And long story short,
following behind you.
Yeah. So we get here, you know, and I take some time, you know, just to relax because I can, you know, like I'm lucky to have had the ability to do that. And that was a year ago that whole process started, you know, right around now. And yesterday, I realized that it was like, I actually thought the house was as good as it could get because it's so beautiful here. You know, we're just so blessed where we live. But yesterday, man, dude, you know, I got a new job and I couldn't be happier. You know, I couldn't be happier. And for some reason yesterday, it just hit me that I got my first paycheck yesterday. Now listen to this. Listen to this. I had enough money from when we sold the house all the way back then, from the time we sold the house. I'm not talking about like the money that we had gotten from those, because that's all gone. It's all the savings I had over and beyond that. I had enough money where when I got to my first paycheck yesterday, I was 12 cents negative in the bank for the first time. Like it's kind of like a skid into the stop, and it's just a perfect stop.
Right.
Right. And then you just pick it up and keep going. And I was just like, we took all these different leaps of faith to get here.
And you're there.
And it was just, it wasn't more than we needed. It wasn't less than, it was just enough to make the transition. I couldn't have timed it myself or any better. You know what I mean? Like it.
Heck yeah.
And for me, it was just a lot of confirmation that when you live in this spirit, right? When we're talking about recovery today, when you live in that spirit, these steps aren't just fluff, man. It's when you live in that spirit, man, it doesn't work out. You just don't realize that what you're doing will lead to it working out. Right? Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Tony. You know, do you follow me? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I'm not a believer like, you know, fate and all that. Like it doesn't work out. It's not a third person moving pieces to your benefit. It's when you live this way, there's a reason. And because I think the formula has been thought through by others, you know, including myself, on what it takes to make it in life, you know.
Yep.
And step 5, I think, is, that's right, Amy. You know, we don't do it alone, man. I wouldn't have done it without you guys. You know, and it would have been a lot harder without you guys. You know, I would never encourage anyone to say I couldn't have done it without you, because you still have to do your part, and you made it this far even before you met these people. But when you meet people along the way and you bond and you make friendships and you respect those relationships, all these things do work out in the sense of doing it the right way, right? And so you have the support when you need it, but you have to be strong enough to do it when no one else is there to do it for you. Yep. You know, and it's a combo, it's a constellation of all of that, right? Yeah, you and your people make it work. That's I wouldn't be here without all the people in my life, that's for sure. Like my uncle wouldn't be here without him. You know, I think me and Julie would have been living in a hotel if it wasn't for Amy with Samaya, you know. we would have paid, triple to move here if we hadn't had you there. You know what I mean? Like it's everything fell into place.
Yeah, don't you still owe me like $8,000 for that?
I'm pretty sure you owe me $100.
I do. I do.
So subtract it from your $8,000.
I do. You are correct.
So the point I realized yesterday is that, and this is, I think we all hit this at some point. It was all worth it. All the dark nights, all the fear and anxiety, all going to the grocery store and trying to be so frugal that you're choosing between 99-cent bread and $1.01 bread. Like you're just really trying to
Morning, nephew.
And so and let me tell you, when you come out of that, what it's like. Because last night I had an experience with you. I took Salinas and Julie out to eat. Samaya went to go see a Cubs Cardinal game yesterday. And we go to eat. And I'm lucky I don't have to count every penny right now because I got this job, right? I'm not. But we've been doing it for a year. And so we get there. And Julie wants a salad, but she's worried about adding anything to the salad because she thinks there's going to be an upcharge to it. We're talking about pennies. Right? And I said, sweetie, we don't have to do that anymore. Like we're okay. And she's like, yeah. Like it's when you exercise this muscle for so long, knowing when to transition and how to transition into the next step in your life it's not a natural reflex right away. Recovery is just like that, right? Like how many of us are looking over our shoulders every day waiting for the other shoe to fall when things go good? We can't see them until you're back. I think you're leaning so far back you're getting blended out. There you go.
Sorry about that.
No, you know what I'm saying? So here we are at step 5, and I think it's the perfect transition from the story I'm telling, because when we're talking about step 5, we're talking about disclosing our wrongs and our wounds, but we're also talking about, when we talk about wounds, having to live so disciplined can feel like a wound. It can feel like you're not living. It can feel like you're not able to have experiences. It can feel like you're not going to make it, and you're trying to stick to this course. But as we get past the middle or the beginning of step 5, the one thing we start talking about are all of these relationships, including like the relationship you have with a job, right? Like the relationship you have with family and your mailman and your neighbor, your moving person, Amy, whoever it is, right? Like in step 5, we have to start filtering this change through all of our important relationships. Oh, Amy says she's ready to jump in. She's got her pants on, hopefully, for this.
I'm sending you the link right now, babe.
So as she's getting loaded up, I'm going to read the title of step 5, and then that'll help set the tone, man. So in step 5, we've disclosed through our spiritual connections, and we've spent a lot of time talking about what that means. People, places, and things that you're connected to. Family, friends, others, yourself, things like that, right? Disclose through our spiritual connections to ourselves and to another human being. So we're basically saying you might have to go through a number of people to get here, right? To the people you love and are closest to, having conversations with yourself like I do all the time, and then to a special other person who can receive what you're doing through this step. Can't just be anyone. It's got to be someone who can hold you during this step. You still there, Monte? You look frozen.
I'm here. Okay. I'm responding to. So just so you guys know, I apologize. My sister lives in Mississippi. Apparently somebody stole a plane and is flying it around her area, threatening to crash it into buildings. Small plane, but I'm responding to my sister. So
They can come crashing in my shed. I would love to replace it.
Amy, good morning, babe.
Well, good morning,
Good with
Pepper.
you.
How are you?
What's
I
up,
am-
Amy?
I hear for step 5.
Are you in your new house?
No,
No,
not
that's the old
yet.
house.
16 more days till the new house.
I know you're excited.
I
know.
am. I haven't sold the big house yet, but I'm confident it will sell. It always does.
Well, I'm going to
And-
tell you what my realtor told me is that paint job needs to be white.
Oh, shit. I know.
Yeah.
Or gray. Or gray.
It's done.
I hate you for making me paint that whole house. You have no idea how struggle that was.
I
And now,
know.
Julie,
I
look, we got a
know.
perfectly painted house now, and Julie wants to paint. I'm like, I'm not painting for another 10 years. Like, you can't recruit me. You're not recruiting me. I will watch you paint. I don't care how mad you get. I'm not lifting the finger. I'm not rinsing the brush. I'm not going to get you a bucket, nothing. I'm done painting for 10 years at least.
Well, my problem
10
is
years.
my beautiful Tony painted this room, and I just can't bring myself to paint it.
Well, you remember how
gorgeous it
bright?
is.
You know
remember
what
how
his birthday
bright
today?
my dining room was? It was that shiny orange.
Yes.
It took like 4 freaking coats of like $50 gallon paints to finally get that covered up. It was ridiculous. I'll never ever do that again. Ever.
Well, and see, my living room and dining room are neutral colors. My bedrooms, not so much, but they are professionally painted.
All right.
Just so you know, it's his birthday today, Amy.
I know. Happy birthday, Tony. I still love my master bedroom, even though I'm leaving it. You will have to come paint my new bedroom.
Right?
Yeah, and too bad Tony's not down here because we got a lot of apparently a lot of painting projects that I'm not helping with that need to be done.
Well, you could just bring him down, put him on the 2 can do it truck, and there he goes. Or no, they're here.
They're here,
I was going to say what?
Where my brain is. Coffee.
Listen,
Coffee.
listen, you guys spent a decade. Oh, look at that, Amy. Oh.
Oh, there we go.
You guys spent 15 years building that company. That's never a slip that bothers me.
Okay.
Yeah, I just don't want Amy to relapse.
I will not relapse. I will not relapse. I'll
So-
ride this wagon till the wheels fall off.
Off, baby.
And that
Two
ain't
of the people,
my husband. I ain't riding that wagon anymore.
I got you.
two of the majority of the people, right? Like I have a very small group of people that I call to expose to the insanity that is my brain, my life, and
your sex life.
and my Uncle, you and your damn coffee. You need an IV. I know, Jim. I know. I love you, bro. So you two are 2 of the major resources I use for my mental sanity when I am struggling or hurting or falling
Fucking
apart.
up. Just fucking up, period. Like,
Yeah, right.
it's more often what it is right there.
Yeah. There's another. There's 2 other people that I reach out to as well, and they know. But for me, I remember as a kid, right before I went to prison, thinking that reaching out to anybody was weakness, exposing any kind of my struggle was weakness, and that if I couldn't do it myself, I was supposed to shut the fuck up and pretend like I could.
And see, there's the difference. I was raised where you get up and you just go try it. Even if you fail, you still have to go try. Even if you feel like crap, you still had to get up and go try it.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Man.
I'm not allowed to stay home sick from school without first getting up and taking my shower and putting my clothes on.
That's ridiculous.
No, if you were sick after you got up and got dressed and, were ready to go and you were still sick, then you could stay home. But if you just really didn't want to go, it was kind of the test. You still have to get up, take your shower, get dressed, be ready to go. But if you still feel like crap after that, then you can lay down and
Hey, listen to that. Reminds me of this. Listen to this. This is stupid. So Selena's is home now with us. She moved back here,
Good.
and as soon as she got here, she immediately, within like a week, had a low because she's diabetic, and the lows are deadly. The lows can kill you, and we thought she was high or drunk because she was acting funny. And so she ends up going to low. And anyway, it ends up being a trip with an ambulance to the ER.
Oh, no.
She's okay. She's obviously okay. But we realized there's something that can help her when she's in low called a glucagon.
Mhm.
And it's like an EpiPen for diabetics, right?
Really?
Yeah. But first of all, she just moved here and all her shit was in garbage bags. There's like 20 garbage bags. So good luck trying to find where the glucagon gun is. So eventually we got a prescription filled to go get her glucagon. And we're like, hey, you need to tell us how to use this thing. And she says, well, you don't stick it in my butthole. I just want to be clear. She's going to be unconscious.
Hey, Sammy.
She's going to be unconscious when we use her. Right? She's
My
like,
poor baby.
I just want to be clear.
Does not go in the butthole, bro. What have you done to my poor niece that's the first thing she has to say? It doesn't go in my butthole, Dad. Like, doesn't go there.
Worry.
I don't know. I was like, I don't know what we did, bro, but it stunned me. I was stunned. Did we lose Amy? We lost Amy.
Oh, we lost Amy.
Dude, it was
My poor baby.
Anyway, let's get back to step 5. I'm not quite sure how to connect that to step 5, but listen. Okay, so let me read the first couple paragraphs and we're not going to read the whole thing, but I want to read the first couple paragraphs here because I think it really sets the tone here. I'm quoting Gandhi before I get into the paragraph. It says, if your heart acquires strength, you will be able to remove blemishes from others without thinking evil of them. So it's basically saying by working on yourself and healing yourself, you won't be condemning other people while they're suffering and going through by being dicks or whatever. And you also might help them heal. Tell me that's not the spirit of recovery, right? Like what we're doing here, right? Like we're working on ourselves and in turn are able to help others do the same. And that was a quote by Gandhi. So here are the first 2 paragraphs. They're short. Transparency for the former is as air is for all living things. It is the speck of light that breaks through the distance of endless tunnels we now emerge from. It brings to light what should not be left in the dark. And I want to pin that. I want to come back to that. It brings to light what should not be left in the dark. The strength it gives us allows us to remove the blemishes not only from our own hearts, but those of others. Transparency may be the seed of empathy for the former, and I think for others, right? Step 5 becomes the pathway that opens the hearts of formers and allows us to join with our spiritual connections and ourselves in a meaningful way that root us to this place. It is the cementing of change in thought to action. It allows us to share not only in the spirit of genuine disclosure, but perhaps most importantly, and perhaps for the first time in our lives, in a genuine act of humility, selfless love, and compassion for others. Letting others see how deep our remorse and awareness runs about our wrongs and wounds can help all those involved to heal themselves. As it has been said, sharing is caring. So we're basically saying that by the time we get to step 5, we've done enough work to know what our issues are. We know what we've done to harm others. And we also have explored the harm that's been done to us, which is often like underneath the harm that we're doing to others. So by having talked about that, now we need to go start disclosing this, because up to step 4, a lot of that work has been done like in behind closed doors of recovery. Step 5 is when we move from just the tables of recovery, the rooms of recovery, and into the world around us. So now maybe we're starting to talk to, is that Lizzie? Was that Lizzie?
Yeah, she brought me a fresh cup of coffee. I finished the other one.
Yeah, Julie never does that for me, ever.
Hey, I'm just here hoping I can train the dogs to bring me coffee.
Got it. So now step 5 is where we start taking risks, because we're going to start disclosing and sharing. And remember what it said here. It said, you're not just going to talk about your wrongs. You also are going to tell someone what's been done to you, right? Like what you've been through.
That's hard.
That's extremely hard. And, I would encourage everyone to find at least one person that they can do that with. You can't do this alone. And there's something different when you share it with someone else other than work through it in your own diary.
I have a point on that.
Okay.
So as a former alcoholic, or whatever the hell it is, I was not the best parent to my 2 older children. So I have brought that to my eldest child, who had it the roughest. Because she's a little bit like me and doesn't know how to shut the hell up. But the other thing is that she was the eldest.
Leave my baby alone.
I know. But she was the eldest, and a lot of stuff got put on her because I was a single mom and I'm working hard and I'm trying to look like I have it together. And I didn't have it together. There were reasons that I was binge drinking. There were reasons that I was angry, and I needed to come to grips with those. Sammy, you helped me with that, but it didn't undo the damage I had already done to my children.
Yeah.
And, by the way, I'm sorry I did that, but this is probably why I did that. I was struggling with all these other issues. And she goes, Mom, it's okay. I appreciate, and she's real grown, she goes, I appreciate that your apology. And do you know how much it would help other people like me if their parents or whoever had harmed them had come back and apologized the way and owned it the way you do? And that was great. I felt like that made step 5 bearable, is that it did help her understand it wasn't about her.
Yeah.
It was my own demons.
And I think that is a real testament to what we're trying to do here. Because
step 5 works.
Yeah. When you think about our 3 pillars, forgiveness, reconciliation, and redemption, it's stories like that I think really are the reason we have those pillars. Iris Jane said, that's where I'm most saddened and angry. That goes back to what I read here. And there's other lines in step 5, Iris. You can go and read that. But we can't leave in the dark what should be in the light. And so that sadness and that anger about failing as a mom has to come out at some point, when at the right step, right? At the right step. I think we all feel that shame and that anger and that sadness about what we did to our kids. Oh, you're on mute, Amy. We can't hear you.
No, she's not.
Well, she was talking.
Amy, can you hear us? Amy.
There I am. I
There
think.
you are.
Okay.
Well, I can't see you guys anymore.
Uh-oh.
I'm sorry. I'm new to this.
We can hear and see you just fine, though.
Yep.
Okay. Well, I couldn't hear you, and I was trying to hear what you were saying.
I love that shirt.
We were saying that Iris commented that she was sad and angry as failing as a mom. And, I think a lot of us have experienced that and still experience. I've got a son once again in jail, possibly related to a homicide. right? And it's like, you can't help but realize like that's a kid that I was in prison for most of his life, you know, and but you also realize that there are limits to what you can control, especially at this stage in your life. But we cannot afford to leave those things that are in the dark, like that shame and guilt. That shame and guilt will eat you alive. And one of the best ways to deal with that is to shed light on it, right? We have to be willing to talk about it. Like you said, Amy, you know, like you faced your daughter. That's the other element of that, right? You did go to her, but you went and faced her, right? Like, and you allowed her to be there, to see you in your vulnerability, and by being transparent, you deepen that relationship. We're bringing to light what they've always known and have been waiting for us to speak life into. A lot of times they're patiently waiting for us to get to that point where we can speak about those things. Now, who are we going to do this with? And I think this is where we start to identify the 8 relationships we all have. Every human being in the world has these 8 relationships. 4 of them are with ourselves and 4 of them are with others. So when we think about how to work any of the steps, they have to be filtered through these 8 relationships. The relationship with yourself, the 4 parts of yourself are dealing with your physical relationship, your emotional relationship, your mental relationship, and your spiritual relationship. And remember, by spiritual, we're not necessarily attaching that to a religion. It can for some, but for us, spirituality exists in those relationships that matter most to us, whatever those may be. So for me, my children are certainly a part of that. You know, so those are 4 relationships. And what's important to know is, if you have relationships in 3 of those areas, your life is out of whack. And much less 2, much less 1. And unless you're trying to eliminate all those. And how do we know this? Like when we're out there committing crimes, people would definitely describe us as not having any emotions, right? We don't have any remorse. We don't lose any sleep over what we've done. So right there is one of the examples of being out of balance. But I think for people who have, let's talk about someone who struggles with an addiction with a substance like alcohol. Their battle may be more emotional than mental, right? And for the criminal, their battle is more mental than emotional because they think their way through why it's okay to hurt. We can justify and rationalize harming others versus I hate myself and I really don't care what I think about. Criminals think too much about themselves. They think they're the shit. They're next to God. They're all powerful. You know, we have a right to do this and that. That's typically how we're walking around thinking about things. But on the other side of that, when somebody is dealing with those emotional demons, they really don't think very much of themselves. They're very hard on themselves. We try to drown that out, literally. And with the spiritual piece, what do we do with our relationships when we're in the grips of that addiction? We tend to distance ourselves from those folks that are there for us. We tend to block out their words so that they don't get through to us. We don't want to hear what they have to say. You know, we might abuse those relationships, neglect those relationships, abandon those relationships. And then not to mention what we do to ourselves physically, right? In those periods of time. I mean, even though I didn't use drugs, I could be on a binge for 4 or 5 days where I didn't sleep. What is that doing to me, right? Or hardening my body to use it as a weapon. What does that do to me, right? Like doing things like that. So you can see how when we're in those grips, how the relationships with ourselves really take a hit. If you notice in the rooms, if you've been around 12-step rooms, people either lose a lot of weight or gain a lot of weight in their early stages of recovery, right? Like we either get super skinny or super chubby. People are showing up with their 120-ounce jugs of coffee or Mountain Dew. and it used to be back in the days. I don't know if they're still smoking in these rooms, but
no,
you couldn't even see that. It was so anonymous that when you smoked, you couldn't see anybody's head because you're under a cloud of smoke. Or the next guy was with a big ass like Sam's Club size bag of candy, right? Like we always did these things. Even in recovery, we were still doing things to excess, right? Until we address that stuff. So you can see why we need the balance in all four of those areas. The other relationships that we have with others, I group those as family and friends as one. And when I say and friends, those are your close friends. Those are the people you would adopt as part of your family, not just acquaintances. These are your community.
Right, guys.
Yeah. So family and friends is together. It's not just acquaintances, you know. Your community, that might be where your acquaintances meet. But so there are 3 levels of community. There's micro, meso, and I can't remember the last one. Macro. Micro is like your neighbors, people that your cubby coworker, your mailman might be similar. You know, I had a good relationship with my mailman. I don't know about everybody else. I felt it was important because he's the one delivering. And here I'm really close with my garbage people. You know, like I know their names. I go out and greet them when they come by in the morning. We talk a little bit. You know, like that's the community, right? That's our community. And it can also be your boss. You know, it could be a customer. It could be the people you greet at the restaurant when you're eating. You know, I try to make a habit of asking my waitress what her name is if I don't know it or she didn't say it. You know, make a little small. Community is kind of semi-close, but community can also be the DOT or the Department of Corrections or big giant institutions. It spans from all of that. What's up, Amy?
Your community could be part of the damn problem.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to get to that. Right now, we're just identifying what those quadrants are. But yeah, the community can be the problem, you know, a part of the problem, like you said.
Wonderful boss, and I loved him to death. But he would encourage me, Amy, we're going out drinking tonight. You coming? Okay, here I come. I felt like it was part of my job to go get smashed on a Tuesday night.
Yes.
I had a friend who anytime I had anything like majorly bad happen, it was like that was the first response. Well, why don't we go get a drink and you calm down? Like for me, the last thing I need when going through a traumatic experience is alcohol or drugs or any type of thing that takes my concentration away from what I need to be figuring out for this disaster, right? Like, but it seems like for the majority, it's the go-to, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, the world's ending. Let's get fucked up. I feel like, oh my God, the world's ending. What can I do to survive that? Because I never want to die, right? Like I want to live for fucking ever. I want to see the end of time. I want to watch, like, I want to see it all. There's so much that I just never want to not see what's going to happen. I want to know the ending to the story, right? Like, I want to know what the ending to the world story is. Right? Like, there's a finite amount of time that human beings are going to be on this world. At some point, we're going to kill ourselves, right? I want to know what the end of the story is. So when that disaster hits or that emotional situation hits, like I'm trying to figure out how I survive it, not get fucked up and figure out how to join them going down. Now, if it's inevitable and like, we got 12 hours until this asteroid hits us, there's nothing we can do. Maybe I get fucked up and, participate in some debauchery and, spend some time with my kids and my loved ones. But like, if there's a chance it was like, I don't understand. Like, I don't get it. I don't want to do that anymore. I remember when I did.
Say, yeah, we can't forget where we come from one day because we did all of that.
Right.
And you know where we buried ourselves for years was in prison. That was our style of avoiding.
Yep.
Right. And so while others might struggle with addiction for years and decades, we hid away in prison. I avoided life. Is it an accident that every time I was in prison and every time I was 90 days from going home, I did a mass casualty event that resulted in extending my sentence for years? I don't think so. I don't think so. Right. So we got to be humble and your logic isn't that different from anyone else's logic in how they function. Right. Like in many ways, I think we're all trying to escape something.
Yeah.
And we're trying to find the best way to do that. remember last week we quoted M. Scott Peck where he said life is difficult. And he basically says the fact that the vast majority of human beings on the planet try to avoid that is what's leading to all the problems we have. So we're very similar to anyone and everyone out there because our reaction is to avoid it. But then we learn that there are better ways to do that, right? And that's why I talk about suffering well, which can be shocking to hear when you're trying to avoid suffering in your recovery or in your lifestyle. You're trying to avoid suffering. I'm saying, well, you actually can't, and people have to come to terms with that if they ever will. On that note, I'm going to keep this person anonymous, but this is someone we all know, someone we've all probably talked to at some point in our recovery together. But one of our formers just went back to prison or back to jail for a domestic violence case. And but the day before he committed this last act, he reached out to me, and I said, well, after we talked, we were trying to figure out a plan, and I'm like, you need to reach out and you need to get some real help. And so his phone died, and then he called me back, and I'm like, why don't we do that today? He says, I actually think I'm going to rest for a couple of days before I do that. And then the next day he committed that crime. To that point. And when we think about this, we don't always have the luxury of a lot of time to get our shit together. And so I think we got to even consider the sense of urgency we have and make that align with the sense of actions that we need to take. So when we talk about step 5, and I'm talking about your 4 relationships, and you say, I probably need some work there, but I'm going to get to it tomorrow. Like that doesn't match your level of consciousness. You have to match what you become aware of has to match your actions. Because with the consciousness can be there, but now we know that the consciousness isn't as high as we think it is when you don't pair it with your actions. When we're talking about your relationships with yourself, we're talking about self-care in 4 areas. And we're saying they're all equally important and they're all equally disruptive if we don't balance them out. And so you might be feeling good emotionally and mentally, spiritually, but if you don't feel good physically, you have to do something about that now, right? Like we got to disclose that. I think if you tell somebody, I think they can help become your accountability partner, right? Like, hey, Sammy, I reached out to Alex and I said, Alex, I'm struggling with my diabetes right now. It's I'm losing control of it. I know a big part of it is my physical activity. So this week, I've worked out 3 days a week as was our plan, right? And so I'm just feeling that I had that sense of urgency, but I know it doesn't matter if it doesn't match my activity. So I'm blending those activities with that sense of urgency, which is what we have to do at step 5. Why don't we have these difficult conversations? Because they're scary, and we don't know how it's going to hurt the other person. We don't know how it's going to be received, and therefore we don't know how it's going to hurt us, right? And so we might avoid that, but this step takes an enormous amount of courage to do because, again, we're going from internal work to external work, and now we lose control. We have to give up that control of what could happen. Now, so we talked about family and friends, community. When I bring in the self, remember we talked about self before in those 4 ways. Now we bring that self and we bring it into those external relationships because the self is a representation of you as a whole person engaging with your community. Now you see yourself as a part of a system, a network. In the first example of relationships with yourself, you're in your room by yourself. This is what you do. You're like an egg in a basket with no other eggs. You're working on yourself. But when we talk from a community standpoint, now you're an egg in a basket with other eggs. So we have to think about how I interact as a bigger part of my community. So look at what we're doing right now. We are talking on a public platform about recovery, that's us bringing our whole selves to this community to serve others, right? You see the difference there? And so when we work on ourselves and then we put it in that basket, you're damn right you got to be, working on yourself, because now you're under pressure of living up to what you're asking others to do, right? And then we bring that spiritual component back. So now there's family, friends, community, self, and then spiritual, because now outside of that basket, you realize there are baskets all over the world. You realize that you're a part of this universe, this global community. And that's where, Amy, I would venture to say you have helped hundreds, if not thousands of people at this point in your life. That's the ripple effect of the universe, right? Like that's that spiritual part of relationship with others, because I'm not just taking care of me and mine that are close to me. We're taking care of me, mine, and trying to do as many other people as possible. That makes sense, guys? What do you guys think? So those are the 8 relationships that are a part of all the step work we have to do. So what are you guys' thoughts about that?
Well, I can tell you this is part of my step work. Being in your group here, because you had a lot of testosterone going on our formers here. And again, you guys don't have the same addictions that everybody that's in our group. And I thought you needed another voice. While I am incredibly uncomfortable being on camera here and laying it bare, I felt like it was my responsibility.
Yes. That's stepping into ultimately our service, right? Ultimately our service. And that's really where the spiritual component of step 12 applies to this community, where that transparency is really, while it's hard, it's extremely liberating. Right? But we're how many of our years have we lived trying to hide it all? It's impossible.
I mean, not only is it impossible, it sets you up for failure to think that that's, what I mean, sustainable. So one of my clients asked me, pretty cool. She had seen the show, right? She had tracked me down on Facebook and just doing her due diligence as someone paying someone to come into their home. She'd watched my show and she was like, Monty, I don't understand. She was like, you're such an amazing dude. I can't believe that's who you used to be. But does it affect your business being open about that? Like on camera, out the forefront. And I told her, if it did, right? I don't know if it does or it doesn't. I don't know if any clients has seen one of my, one of our programs and decided, well, after finding out about his past, I don't want to work with him. Don't care. I truly don't care. I was talking to the captain out at Mount Pleasant PD. My mother recently, in the middle of the night, taking her boyfriend to work, lost a tire on her car. It went flat, and she pulled over, and her spare tire was flat. When I got out there, she called me. It was 11:30 at night. I'm laying down, and she was like, "I need you." And I'm like, "What's up, Ma?" She was like, "My tire went flat. I was taking John to work. He's gonna walk the rest of the way, but I'm stranded." So I drove all the way out to Willow Road and 16th by Johnson Wax out in Sturtevant. And I got there. I had my jack. I had, everything I needed to change this tire. Popped open her trunk, and her spare was completely flat. Like there was it was paper thin. Like it was done. So I called the PD to make sure I could leave her car out there overnight because AAA was going to be 2 hours. And cop came out, and if I had told him, hey, I need help changing this tire, he'd have got out of his car and changed the tire for me, right? MPD, Mount Pleasant Police Department. He was just awesome. He wanted to make sure Mom was okay. Let me know that he was going to put a green sticker on the car. It could sit overnight or, 48 hours. Don't worry about it, buddy. And I left a message with the PD saying, how amazing it was that, Officer Wildy came out there and just made my mom feel safe and comfortable. And me, we're brown people. We're not used to that. Like, we have a little trepidation and fear around the PD. And he did the opposite. He was like just there for us. So his captain called me and he said, "Hey, Monty, we know who you are." And I was like, what? It's like, listen, the PD, he was like, our hearts went out to you when your son died. Thank you for what you do. That kind of transparency, right? That's what it got me. And yeah, it might lose some of my possible clients or people in my life, but those people ain't fucking worth my time anyways, right?
Did you just hear what you said?
Mm.
The police department knows who you are on a positive level.
Yeah.
You one that they knew who you were because they knew to bring back up.
Yeah. RPD, like
Wonderful.
RPD, Caledonia PD, MPD. I know many of their officers. They've all been super supportive of my change in life. I've only had one shitty interaction with him, and he's not an officer anymore. He got booted and went to state patrol because that's where all the pricks go.
Are those the ones that keep pulling me over on the highway?
Yeah. Nobody likes state patrol.
Hey guys, there's a couple of like really good comments or serious comments.
So I don't know what I'm doing wrong here.
So Iris said that she's been through it with her kids, and there was probably like some abuse in her parenting, and then as she was coming out of that, guilt and shame allowed her to let her kids like walk all over her. She's trying to. It looks like she's basically saying, I felt like I deserved it, but it sounds like she's trying to establish healthy boundaries now, And I think we have to be careful because she did say, I recently cut her off. That's a phrase I want to come back to. And Monta said, lose. I think we have to think about this differently. You're not cutting anyone off when you set a healthy limit and boundary. You're changing the way you interact with that person. That's different.
It's like following. So on Facebook, I don't unfriend anybody just because I don't agree with how they live their lives or what they say or anything like that. But I can control what interaction I have with them. So I just unfollow. When I want to be bothered, I seek them out.
Yeah.
But if I don't like what they're saying, it doesn't mean that I have to go out and make it official that I disagree with everything you say and I'm going to cut you off or I'm going to unfriend you. I just choose what of you say I'm going to follow. If I want to see what you're doing, I can look for you.
I think that's a really good example because what we're doing is changing our proximity, but you can't actually cut a child off. That's and I'm speaking figuratively, conceptually here. Remember the 4 relationships. Family and friends is one of them. We live under the illusion that we can sever those relationships. Case in point, when I first went to prison in Wisconsin, I was in the hole. I was in my early 20s. I was next to a 15-year-old kid who had a life sentence for murder. And one day he was telling me about the murder he committed. And he was angry about some sort of disrespect between him and this person. And so he kills the guy. And I don't know why I asked this question. I was just a young punk myself, but I'm like, are you still mad? Are you still mad about the situation? And he was like, Sammy, I wasn't mad 5 seconds after I pulled the trigger. And, and now because he tried to cut that relationship off, it actually deepened a style of a relationship with him. Now that guy's even more connected to him in all the wrong ways, but he's more connected to him because of his actions, right? We can't actually cut relationships off. What we do is change how much or how little we interact with them. That's to your point, Amy. Like, even if you block that person, right, they're still there's still a connection. We have to recognize that. And remember what the top of the Jane, I want you to remember this. If you weren't here for I'm going to go back to the opening here. It says when you basically, so Gandhi said, if your heart acquires strength, and I believe that has a lot to do with healing, you will be able to remove blemishes from others without thinking evil of them, right? Sometimes removing yourself from that relationship as far as you can is a part of helping that other person. So we don't have to think about it always as a negative or a loss. Sometimes it's a part of all of the other interventions that have to happen for this person to come back around. For example, if you've ever broken up with someone that you're still with, in that breakup, you probably evaluated the value and importance of that person in your life, which is part of the reason why you either choose to stay away or why you choose to come back together. But as they say, we often don't know what we've lost until it's not there. And so a lot of times when we distance ourselves, that person that we're distancing from will have to go through a process of thought. You know, I'm hurting my mom. Maybe I need to rethink that. Or they might not in that moment. Does that make sense? Amy, you look a little puzzled. I'm trying to figure out are you puzzled or do you have a different opinion? Where is that? Where
No, I'm thinking about what you're saying. I have a child that I am not going to cut off, but I am going to make their ability to reach me a little bit more difficult.
Yes.
Because I love the child, but the child is doing dumb things and they're grown.
Yeah.
And I am not a doormat. I'm not going to cut him off, but I am making myself less available for his nonsense.
Those adjustments are important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But watching this child do things that either I used to do or their parent used to do, it makes it easier for me to understand now the other people that I might have, that I actually did cut off because I had to.
You know, I think we confuse two things here. We say love is unconditional, right? And we have phrases like
on it.
Love is unconditional, but the relationship isn't.
Right.
Right. The relationship has conditions. My love for you doesn't. Like, I'm going to love you no matter what you do. Yep. But the relationship, that has conditions, right? Like, you can bring me flowers and then slap me in the face. That's not a healthy relationship, even though I still love you. So I'm going to adjust. I've got to adjust. But because we don't know how to have healthy extremes or healthy ways of doing that, we think it's all or nothing. It's black or white. Right. So if I make an adjustment, it means I have to lose you forever, you know, like however we're thinking about that. Like, so when I say I'm cutting off my child, that may not be it. What I have done in that situation, because I have a son who's doing a lot of that stuff, is I'm like, my door is open 24/7 as long as.
Yes.
Right. And so now it's not me cutting you off. It's you deciding if you can honor and respect what I'm saying I need from you in order for you to walk in that door. And he hasn't walked in that door. And guess what? The door is still open and the conditions haven't changed, but I still express my love for him. But I have that proximity adjustment that I'm making and saying, until then, you can't come in this door, so to speak. Right. But we feel guilty of that because no one ever taught us that it's okay to establish healthy limits and boundaries. And it's painful to do it. And it's painful to even think that we can cut someone off. But when we cut them off, tell me you're still not thinking about them. That you still don't care about them. So you're still connected. And so I'm basically saying there's a better way to think about these adjustments we make, even in step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, around the proximity of these relationships. I think that's critical. But when we use language like I'm losing or I'm cutting off, that's depressing and it lacks insight, right? It lacks the healing medicine that you need, so to speak, right? It's you have to heal it. You can't just ignore it, so to speak. And I think when we cut it off, we think we're closing our eyes and it's not there, but it is there and it haunts us, right? And so I think we cannot leave in the dark what needs to be in the light. A lot of that, I think what Iris Jane is saying today is the part of step 5 where we tell someone else the nature of our wrongs and our wounds. That's important. But in step 5, it's not just a disclosure. You're not just getting it out and throwing it up like something stuck in your throat. You're saying, I'm doing this in step 5 to heal this wound. So it goes beyond just disclosing. Does that make sense? You're not just getting it out. Oh, that hurt. No, you're saying, I want to put this out here so we can, lay this to rest, heal it, grow it, burn it, whatever it needs to happen. Yeah. It's got to be that spirit. So if we continue to just disclose but not heal, we at some point become aware, like, I have to start going further. Right. Now I want to talk about the nature of, because it talks about through our connections, we have to talk about the nature of our wrongs and the nature of our wounds. What does it mean, the nature of? Amy, I think you nailed it with your example of your daughter, what you did with your daughter, because you said, this is what I did. This is what I've learned that was behind it or underneath it or driving it. And your daughter was able to gain some insight and understanding, which might have helped her process that wound, right? Or her wound, but you're wrong, right? And so that is what we mean by the nature, that we understand where it came from. When we take someone's abuse, where does that come from? When we commit abuse, where does that come from? When we're acting out in a certain way, where does that come from? And a lot of us can eventually find like the source of what we think the wound is. It's, my parents, this incident, this event, this loss, whatever it may be. We do eventually realize that we've been motivated by things that have wounded us. It's important to talk about. Now, the original step 5 only asked you to disclose your wrongs. Mm-hmm. It said, talk about all your wrongs. But me having been in the field for so long and around so many professionals, you also got to talk about your wounds, because that's just as important, if not more important, because as I said, the vast majority of interviews I've had with people, their wrongs are motivated by their wounds in one way or another. And so finally being able to go to a doctor, go to someone who you feel can help carry that wound, those things are the way. That's what we mean by the nature of our wrongs. So Iris, talk to us a little about what you're like. I'm reading your comments and I see, you cut your family off. That you refuse to honor and respect the older ones, taking that abuse, family never. In the spirit of step 5, what are you going to do with all of that story? Like, what are you going to do with that? It's not enough to just disclose it. Now you have to ask yourself, what can I do with this? And so here, I think I'm not sure if you're working step 5 here or if you need to get this out, but at some point we've got to work through it, right? And we have to heal it. I think we all have those kinds of experiences where we know we've been abused or hurt, left behind, neglected, abandoned. Experiences where we know we've been abused or hurt. But how do we accept, right? That's a great answer, but the step work is what's going to give you the how. How do we come to acceptance? How do we come to forgiveness? Because I think we know the answer, but do we know how? Go ahead, Amy.
No, I was just excited. I think I figured out how to be able to read the comments and still be on camera. That's just me I learned how.
Yeah.
I have to have two devices
here in the background going.
I want those of us who are formers who come here regularly to always be thinking how to filter these wounds and these grievances through the steps, because it's not enough to just disclose. It's a big part of it. It's a really big part of it. But we have to start pushing into our minds, what am I going to do about this to heal this wound? And this wound is typically a memory, right? This wound is typically a reaction, that the way we normally react to things. I was just telling Samaya something yesterday because she mentioned the word PTSD yesterday. When my uncle raped me and my sister, starting when I was 2 and my sister was 5. We all know that. That's been said a million times. It hurts a little bit to always talk about that, but it's not big enough. The benefit of talking about it outweighs the sting that memory brings.
Right.
But here's my PTSD. I don't know the connection. Maybe there's something there I just don't remember. But if I taste orange juice after I drink water, it reminds me of that. It's a stupid trigger. I have no understanding of the correlation there. But if I taste orange juice after I drink water, it reminds me of that bad time. 100% of the time. I'm like, that's PTSD, right?
Yeah.
Like that's an example of me. Here I am 50 years later, an example of PTSD. And I said, but today I know that. And so I've been working through that. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, it used to be a 10 and today it's a 1. It's never a 0, but it's never a 10 anymore. And even if it was a 10, I have a lot of confidence that I know how to bring that back. Like I've had other triggers that are maybe more like a 10, but I've learned how to work through those. But because I'm practicing this effort all the time, I've talked about it so many times. I've chosen to forgive the incident so many times. I've agreed to not live in that moment, not let that drive my. See, I've done all of that work so many times that when it does come up, I'm not just with the story. I'm not just holding the story like dead weight. I'm holding the lessons of that story. I know what's happened. I know that source of that wound. I know the trigger of that wound. I've done all the work over the years on that wound. So when it rises and rears itself, I'm not off guard and I'm not paralyzed anymore. That's the difference between a disclosure and disclosing something that I'm working on. But again, we have to disclose it. And we may not know how to do anything else but disclose it. Because that was me 22 years ago, 23 years ago, walking out of prison. I would tell my story and had no idea that I was supposed to be doing something with it other than that. And if you would have known me then, you would have heard me talking about it all the time. People were probably like, just shut up.
Right.
I was so excited to be getting it out of me, right? But I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. Well, I'll tell you, Iris, let me be very direct. You are free from them. You are free from that. If you want to be free, that's not the reality. You are free from them because you're no longer in that time period. You're actually free. But we go through this too. Me and Monte go through this. I had it, Monte had it. You're out of prison, can't believe you're out of prison. And so you're still looking over your shoulder like you're still in prison. Monte is still taking, what was it, 3-minute showers?
About 5.
You're fucking free. You can take a shower as long as you want. You're free.
Hey, I've been doing 3 songs, right? Remember Samantha said, Monte, just do 3 songs. So I've been taking my phone in there and I've been listening to 3 songs. I try to make them 5 to 6 minute songs. And I've been strict about going into the shower, starting my music, waiting until the third song's done and then coming out. Otherwise, it's like I'll hop in, get wet, wash, rinse, I'm out, right? Like 4 minutes and 13 seconds. And I'd time myself, bro. I'd be like, I can do it in 5 minutes.
I'm gonna go a step further because I know you're in there with your chonies on and your chanclas.
No, I'm not.
It's a whiteboard and a dry erase marker because I get the best ideas in the shower. That's why my phone is always with me so I can text things out to myself.
She ain't lying, bro. I've randomly video chatted her to her doing this. Hey, what's up? I'm in the shower, washing her hair.
She joined one of the meetings like that one time. I remember.
I'm in the meetings all the time and in the shower. I have the thing up. I'm washing my hair. I'm listening to you guys.
Listen, so
I love you.
Look, Iris said maybe after court. I'm going to say no. You're free now, and having to face your perpetrators in court does not compromise your freedom. That's a different conversation. But you're free now, and you have to embrace that. And I say that with love. Like, you are free. What you're working through though are the mental change but those mental chains are you're able to sever those chains. You are free. You just have to accept that you're free. And now that puts a lot of responsibility on you towards your healing, because as long as you feel that you're not, it's their fault you're like this. And that's too much control that we're giving away. You have to take your life into your hands and take control of that. And you can take the chain off. It's like being in a room that has a door and a handle and no lock and feeling like you're locked in it. All you got to do is open the door and walk through it. And that sounds simple, but I know how hard that can be. We've all had to do that, but you are free. I'm going to leave it at that. And I want you to think about that throughout the week. You are free. And remember, disclosing these fears and these wounds and this shame, that's a part of it. The next part is healing that and taking steps and read the step. Like it walks you through specifically how to do this. As we start getting close to the end of our call, of course, here's some questions I'm going to ask, and we can try to answer some of these throughout the week. Am I willing to trust the person who will hear my fifth step? Lead with trust when you're going to talk to somebody about your fifth step. What do I expect from that person? And this is important. Very easily, expect nothing. You're not in control once you let those words go. Right? The important part is that we hope that they receive it and can give you something, but sometimes people won't know what to do with it. That's just the truth. And that's okay, because the most important part was that you took the risk and you led with trust. Can I share with them what I expect and hope from them, this step in them? Like, I think, again, going back to Amy's, idea, if we were to say, I want to talk to you about this time period in our life, or this event, or this life that we had together, what I'm hoping happens is that it helps us heal and move forward and leads to more understanding. You can do that, but you can't expect that. You're hoping for that, right? How will working the fifth step help me begin to develop new ways of having spiritual relationships and connections? If Amy, I don't know if you ever saw me in the very, very beginning of FA, but I was leading the group so much that I hardly disclosed anything about myself. And then I realized I need to start leaning on the group too. Because when you create it, you're there trying to nurture everyone and get every. But it did get to a point that I needed to lean on the group. Yeah.
You needed nurturing. We all need.
I did. And when the first time I did it,
family are not nurturing, so maybe you have to pick a different family.
Yes.
And now I'm your.
Yes, you are. You're very much a part of that. But the first time I did it was when I told my wife I wanted a divorce, and I was holding a meeting on the same day. I was like, I needed to get it out, and I did. And then the last question I ask for this call is, why is it important to me to take this step in my life. If there's nothing else that you think about this week, you can ask yourself, why is this important? We're trying to shed light on the things that should not remain in the dark, and we're trying to do that with ourselves and others. I wouldn't just do it indiscriminately. I think you have to be very wise and intentional about who you choose. And you may have to do this more than once with other people. Go ahead, Amy.
I have multiple children, so we had to do it multiple times. I also have multiple parents that I felt I let down. So
yeah. And this isn't even the amends part.
Hey,
Just
listen,
FYI.
listen, remember when you're talking about those apologies you got to make to those people you let down?
mhm.
You're one of them.
Yep.
Like,
Wow.
That's that's a big thing
Better.
for me.
Anyways.
Like, I went around, even after I started recovery, I went around carrying this 26-foot camper on my back, full of anger towards myself for everything that I had done, right? Like, I was angry at the guy I was, even though he wasn't the guy who did that shit, right? Like, I was still angry at me. Like, not the 19-year-old boy me, but the fucking me who was struggling to be a better human being and going to group and trying to help and trying to be a dad and trying to be a community man. I was still mad at him. Like, I had to sit down and think of it as, let me separate these two people and then stand in the middle and argue between them, right? Like, and the me kept screaming, I didn't do that. You know, there's a funny meme where it says, if we got into an argument last night, don't talk to me about it, talk to drunk me, right? That's what it was. Like, don't talk to me about it. I didn't do that shit. I'm a dad. What? I'm a dad. Look at Uncle Sammy and Aunt Amy. Did you say hi?
Good morning, Miho.
Hey,
Hi.
what's up? Em?
He broke into my office. Yeah, huh? Yeah, huh? You know,
Mhm.
don't talk to me about it. Talk to him, right? So I had to take that time to forgive myself and say, okay, that wasn't you. Like, you.
Step 5 talks about that. You've got to have this conversation with yourself. And I think after you do step 5, you got to have another conversation with yourself to talk about the results.
Yeah.
Right? Like, okay, that went better than expected, or okay, there's still some work there, or I need to work on this more. You know, who knows what we're going to come out of that with, but we cannot. And I also want to recognize Sabrina was asking us to keep her. She asked for prayers, but what I'm going to do is encourage you to come to these meetings, and I'm going to encourage you to disclose what's going on and to share with us and to weigh in. And we're all with you. You're not alone. That's for sure. But we're also here for you, and maybe talk to somebody about whatever you're going through. Okay. All right, guys, it is 11 o'clock Monday. It's time to wrap up. Amy, you made the show so less testosterone.
And you're much nicer to look at than his fucking mug.
Hey,
You
that's
got me. I
such
was
the best
trying
thing
to
to
put my
say.
makeup on, and I'm like, nope, we're gonna do this meeting like I said I was going to do, and I'm gonna be the girl in the group.
Hell yeah. I love you, Amy. Thank you.
You are a much needed aspect of this group. Let's put it that way.
Sammy.
All right, guys.
All right, love you guys.
Happy birthday to all those folks from the top of the call. Enjoy your long weekend.
Tony Buloni, my niece Lorena, and my beautiful daughter Sissy. Happy birthday, you guys. It's no doubt fate that all three of you were born on the same day, and you're all so important in my life. So I love you guys.
That's a lot of dollar store gifts.
All right, everybody. We love you guys. You guys have a wonderful day. We will talk to you on Saturday next week.
Peace out.
Thank you.
Peace.
Bye. I don't know how to turn it off.
I love you.
Shit. Love you too. Now, how do I turn this?